Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are following us on Facebook. We appreciate that very much. If some of you were missing us last week, I know a lot of people were probably sitting or looking at the podcast going, what happened to Real Estate Radio Live last week? I know that stopped everybody in their tracks.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
People were
Not
nervous.
to worry, we're still here. We just was out of town, and so I apologize for those people that are addicted to the show, and here I am making stuff up. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. We had no podcast last week. Continuing again this week, and Mike and I are here. It is a Wednesday, and if our schedules permit, we're here two Italian guys talking real estate. Today we're going to talk about rent control and a few other things. Rent is obviously a big, big deal in the Bay Area. It's expensive. What does rent control mean? Are there guidelines, some laws around it? What can you do? What does it mean for landlords? What does it mean for renters? And then we're going to talk a little bit about that, and not really in exactly to do with rent control, but we're going to shift gears a little bit in the second part of the show and talk a little bit about first-time home buyer opportunities and bring up some things people may or may not know. I think when a lot of people think about first-time home buyers, they think about condos or a small place or a place to get started, which is great. We always say just get started. Doesn't matter where. It's never going to be a dream home, perfect home to begin with, but you got to start somewhere. But there's some other parts of the first-time home buyers I think that people may not know, and we're going to chat a little bit about that in the second part of the show. So here we go. Rent control. Maybe you want to give us kind of an overview?
So fun. I'm going to try to give as unbiased of an overview as I can, being a real estate guy, but it probably won't. It probably won't end up that way.
Try not to let it come out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got to have my notes for today because I don't want to say anything inaccurately, and there's still a lot coming up on this, and a lot to be researched, and frankly, there's still a lot that legislators and the governor and they don't know how this is all going to... I mean, they put this stuff in place, but I don't think ultimately anyone knows how it's going to affect things down the road, i.e. values of real estate. Is it really going to limit rent increases, et cetera? So basically, Governor Newsom, and I don't know who the legislators were, put in statewide rent control. It's going to be effective January 2020, and it will sunset in 2030. However, it's retroactive to March 15th of 2019. So it's going to be for apartment properties where rent control applies will be limited to 5% plus inflation or 10%, whichever is lower.
All right.
The bill also makes just cause eviction a lot harder. So it requires them to have just cause for eviction for tenants that have occupied the premises for more than a year. The bill does not preempt any local rent control or just cause ordinances. So, for example, a city like San Jose had rent control in place already. If that had been more, this wouldn't preempt it. But San Jose is already 5%. So that's the high level. Now, it pertains to apartments that are 15 years or older.
So this is apartments only. Is that right?
This is for apartments or multi-unit property.
So that would be duplex, triplex.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see. What
else? So it does not affect single family.
No, I'm sorry. It does affect single family.
Okay.
Single family, condos, townhomes.
Okay, it does.
Anything. Here's talking to a property manager. Here's some things to think about, I guess, and maybe here's the value of listening to this podcast. Some things to think about, right? Owning rental properties is going to become much harder with this type of a law. So how do you go around that or get it? According to this, maybe you look into buying new construction homes, because this only pertains to properties that are 15 years or older. Maybe you look at, so if you're looking at buying a 6-unit, so if you buy a 6-unit apartment building in Campbell, for example, it's going to cost you $2, $3, $4 million.
Right.
you could probably take that $2 to $3 million and buy, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 brand new houses in Sacramento, where you're getting rents. Now you're not gonna benefit from the appreciation standpoint of it, but you're not going to be subject to these rent control ordinances.
Right. One of the things that I think about right away, and this could throw a wrench, or this could give some people some kind of devious ideas, but that's the way my mind works sometimes. So what would stop a person then from maybe taking the Airbnb approach instead of renting it to a single person?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joe.
Right?
That's a good question, Joe. Other than, I think there are a lot of new ordinances outside of this one to balance that out with short-term rentals. I mean, a lot of cities have really cracked down hard on that, on the Airbnb thing. So that would be the only issue I could see with that.
You know what's great about it, kind of a side note, and I won't digress too much, but what's great about it is you have all these entrepreneurs that come up with these great companies and ideas like Airbnb and all that. And then, because the taxpayers or the government of the counties couldn't frickin' come up with any good ideas to, now they're going to, how do we tax these son of a bitches? Yeah,
exactly. It's really...
it is kind of funny the way that works.
It is, and it's it's really, it's going to hurt apartments. It's really going to hurt it. So
anyway.
So
rent control, it's just something that from a renter's perspective, most renters would say... Yay, I mean, this is great, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
I mean, that's so, what you're saying is there's really two sides of this. I know it's easy, and, we like to obviously look at all aspects of everything on this show and talk about everything that affects everybody, not just one-sided. So it would be easy for everybody to be celebrating and happy if you're a renter, but there's always a bigger picture to a cause of a bill or something that changes the law. As you had mentioned, what does that do for prospective owners, landlords, investors? Right? There's another aspect of that.
Well, there is. And so getting outside of the technical part of it, basically these multi-unit property, and you know this from the lending side, multi-unit properties, especially 5 or more units on the commercial side, it's really about the income, not as much about the owner's borrower. It's about the income of the property and how. So the income determines the value of the property, which is a cap rate and all these other factors that investors look at to give the value of a property. So limiting the amount of money that you can raise on the income per year is going to affect values on that over time. Then it goes down into, it depends on the property owner as well. If you got this whole rent control thing won't be a big deal to certain property owners that have kept good care of their property, have kept the rents up, they're at market. Right. You really can't squeeze a lot more out of rent than you already have. It's hard to overcharge people for rent because people aren't stupid. They'll go somewhere else. So for people that have kept up on that, it's probably not as big of a deal. But for a lot of property owners out there, multi-unit property owners that have owned these properties for a long time, and I've talked to dozens and dozens of them that haven't really raised rents because they don't want to lose tenants, and they just haven't.
Right.
This is a big deal.
Okay.
Because it makes it really hard to evict somebody out of there for no reason, and then you can't raise the rent on these guys for more than a certain percentage. So that's going to be hard. Now, on the other hand, what it doesn't pertain to, if just someone moves out of their own volition, then you're good. Right. You can you can put the rent to market and do all that other stuff. But you can't just kick somebody out because they're not paying good enough rent. You're gonna have to go through some really stringent rules, just cause, to get rid of a tenant, basically.
Well, yeah, and I know there's two sides of that story, but you and I have both heard both sides of the story, and what I mean by that is, there are some laws in place, and there's some. Unfortunately, it's really difficult to get rid of someone, even they're a terrible renter.
Yeah, it is.
Right? I mean, they could the squatting rights and all this other stuff they're talking about.
California is it's a lovely state.
Yeah,
it's a lovely state.
So you think that, and again, this is just like playing devil's advocate. Do you think that eventually, Mike, you wonder if landlords, investors are going to come up with something else to be a little more creative, to generate more revenue from a property? So let's say you have a rent control and you're maxed out. Are they going to start, and again, I'm just because I'm an idea person, are they going to start doing an annual this fee, an application fee, a renewal fee. You wonder how creative that gets into.
That's a good question,
right?
And
look at what the banks and the hotel. I mean, I could go on and on about industries that have come up with different ways to generate revenue because they said, okay, well, you're regulated here, right?
You may have just started a movement, Joe.
Or a new company.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. Maybe, but seeing as the states come down so hard on property owners with this, and if something like that cropped up, I got to imagine it's going to make its way up to legislation at some point too. So
just to be clear too, I think you mentioned, so this is existing property, so this does not apply
new construction.
So if someone just built a 160 new unit complex wherever, it does not apply to that.
No, it does not.
All right.
Yeah. So what else? What's it going to do to values? Let me just read this quote real quick. It's going to have varying effects on property values depending on several factors. In outlying areas that rarely achieve rent growth above 5%, the implications are going to be minimal, which is true.
Right.
Increased tenant rights such as barriers to eviction will come into play, but they'll have a nominal effect on property valuation. In areas with more restrictive rent control, there will likewise be little effect. For other areas, implications could be multifaceted because rent control lowers the incentive to build more apartment units. Supply limitations will restrain vacancy levels and increase pressure on rent growth. So property values are going to be highly dependent on tenant turnover and the ability to raise a specific asset to the market.
Yeah. So rent control in general, what I always say is people that are looking to rent, keep an eye out obviously for location, what your budget is, what you're going to rent, and these laws are in place. I wonder how this affects, this is all, as I think out loud, so this is all residential kind of, right? I mean, this is strictly residential. Does it have anything to do with commercial or maybe senior care units and things? That's just all strictly.
All on the residential side.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So then we were talking we got to do more research too, but I mean, if you look at how the governor he's really putting in a lot of laws or signing a lot of bills in he's trying to increase the amount of units that get built in the state of California. And so one of them that we were doing some research on and that we got to do more on, and maybe we'll do a show on this, is one that basically...
Do we want to tell people this? This is a secret, man.
Oh, yeah, it is a secret.
We want to try to take advantage of this stuff.
No, but basically something to the effect of limiting the single-family zoning or getting rid of it, basically, and allowing... And this isn't anything new. I mean, granny units have been... The restrictions for granny units were eased a couple years ago because they're trying to get more housing. He kind of took it a little bit further, maybe adding another unit on it and being close to transportation and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on right now with housing.
There is.
This is the point.
There is. And I think we probably should do an update on these ADUs too, Mike, because... I think I saw something recently, even though they've had a record amount of permits being requested or pulled for ADUs, right? Yeah. But I was just reading somewhere, too, they're still trying to make it even simpler because it's still pretty expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
The permits are expensive, and, when it's all said and done, it could cost you $100,000 to build one. You know?
Or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think the other piece is now some people are looking at, as a matter of fact, if you go to the city's website, I don't know if you saw this, but they have one authorized user now, and it's actually a modular home that they're building off-site in a warehouse or whatever, and then they bring to your property kind of the tilt-up type stuff.
Yeah.
And they build it that way, and they're certified, or no, certified is the right word, but they're the only ones that's certified by the city of San Jose to be in use.
Approved vendor.
Approved vendor. That's what I'm looking for.
So they come in, they pour the pad, they run the electrical and the plumbing, and then these guys just plop it down.
Yeah, and so these are all options to think about what, from the county, city, states trying to do, add more housing. But if you do this strategically as a homeowner, too, it could be very beneficial for you down the road for your property, for property value. You could be used for children, grandparents, parents. Obviously, you could use it to rent. I know some people, and something I thought of, too, down the road, if you have a nice accessory dwelling unit on your property, somewhere down the road, if you're older or you want to travel for a couple of years or whatever, live in that yourself and then rent your main house.
Yeah, you could. Kick yourself out of your own house.
Kick yourself out, give yourself an eviction notice, get the hell out of your house in the next 30 days.
Exactly.
So, the rent control, obviously it's well documented here in the Silicon Valley. It's a super expensive place. There's the downside. But I always tell people, to counteract that, you have to look at the balance of how much earning income power you have too. You talk to someone that's buying in North Carolina or any of these other places or Tennessee, I could go on and on. There's a lot of energy and excitement around, look what you could buy there.
Yeah.
And I haven't done the homework or the research yet, but I can tell you that this is, to make income, this is one of the best places in the nation, or if not the world, to earn income.
Yeah, it's all relative.
Tech,
it's all
right?
Relative. Kind of what you think you're alluding to is that housing costs typically
Mm-hmm.
mirror the income levels of
right.
what people are doing, and that's what drives the economy around here, especially in Silicon Valley, is the job
right.
market.
Right.
And again, everyone always asks you and I, what's going on with the market? What do you see? Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. If we did, we probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. But, it looks like if the job market continues to be strong in the economy, I mean, I don't see what else is gonna make this huge wave here in the Silicon Valley.
I think there's this huge psychological, and I don't have the data to sit there and support this, and I would bore people to death to do it, so I wouldn't do it. But
don't bore us.
I think that there's this huge psychological drain and suck right now in terms of people thinking about, the tariffs and the stuff with China, and then, is Trump going to be impeached, and is he going to be in office next time, and is there a recession coming, and all this crap that people are listening to and thinking about and paralyzing yourself. In the meantime, you have record low interest rates and a great buyer's market, and I'm not being sarcastic, but I think my take on this is, people I talk to generally, when you read articles and do research, I think there's this little bit of a paralyzation with those factors going on.
Yeah, people do. They literally won't make a decision. I mean, I've had listings where buyers come in and then the stock market has a bad day or something. And
I think I'm going to wait.
Yeah, I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
And that's their prerogative. If they want to do that, fine. They might miss a good opportunity, but they can do that.
Yeah,
that's their own thing.
Well, speaking about the market, we're going to spend the next few minutes as we wrap up the show talking a little bit about first-time home buyers and some of the benefits that you may or may not know. I mean, most people, when you're a first-time home buyer, you want to get educated. We've said that before. The great news is you could get educated online and you can learn a lot. But I can't stress enough, Mike and I both, when you decide, if you are serious about buying a house, make sure you engage with a professional real estate agent and a lender that is going to come alongside and educate you and give you the information you need to know. It's you can find so much online, and that's great. But when it comes time to really making these decisions, there's a lot more that goes into it. You can know a lot, but you're never going to be an expert unless you spend a lot of time in this business. So make sure you align yourself with someone that you trust and someone that recommended. But the other piece of it is with first-time home buyers, I wish I would have thought more about this, or I was educated when I bought. But, if you could somehow look at a multi-unit like a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. Now, when I say this, it doesn't mean you're going to go out and find one right here. It doesn't mean, but
make sure it doesn't have rent control.
Yeah, rent control. But all I'm suggesting is be open-minded and really explore the option of, I'll give you an example. If you were a first-time home buyer and you bought a duplex, a lot of people don't know this, you could buy that FHA, even a triplex or a fourplex. You could literally buy a 4-unit property with 3.5% down as long as it met the Fannie Freddie guidelines with FHA, and those are pretty high here in the Bay Area. Let me just give you an example. With 3.5% down, you could live in 1 unit yourself and rent the other 3 units out.
Yeah.
And that may not exist here.
Yeah.
All day long, but it could in other locations.
What I love about the idea is everyone else is paying your mortgage for you.
Yeah.
You literally...
And you keep an eye on those suckers
at
the same time because you live in the same unit.
That might be a curse at the same time. But you literally put nothing out of pocket.
Right.
3.5%, okay?
Yeah.
And then you rent it out, and you have 3 other people paying your mortgage for you.
It's true. We did some numbers today. I was helping a guy in the office with a marketing thing he's going to be doing, and I was helping him with some numbers. And you look at even at a purchase price of, we were looking, I think, at 1.1, 1.2. And again, you may not, find a fourplex to get it around here or somewhere else. But the point is this: no matter what area it is, forget about the area for a moment. You could buy a multi-unit, whether it's a duplex, triplex, fourplex. You could buy that, depending on what the loan limits are. Put as little as 3.5% down. As Mike was saying, I mean, you run the numbers; they're pretty compelling. You have really the two other people paying close to the majority of that, and you're growing your equity, appreciation, and of course there's some tax benefits too. So,
technical question here: when they qualify you on that with the 3.5% down, do they qualify based on the fact that you can afford the entire payment, or do they use the some of the income?
No, they use the renters too.
They use the renters too.
And they've kind of the formula. That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. Kind of the formula they use in the lending world is they do a rental analysis, right? And let's say those other 3 units would net $2,000 a month, right? And then so what they would do is give you 75% of that.
Okay.
So they're not going to give you, but that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So that helped you qualify because they're going to assume rents, and again, rents are the history. What kind of rents are going to get? They're pretty strong around here. So really, the message is first-time home buyers. I guess you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. You could do this too anytime.
Yeah.
If you sell your house and do this as well, but the strategy to try to get into something as soon as possible. There are a lot of people in the Bay Area, I see it all the time, that make a good income, and I think unfortunately, I hate to say this, but the majority of news is negative. And it just
really?
It just is. I know. Is that going to surprise you? The majority of news is negative, and I know this is, people hear this story before, but you know, if you listen to something long enough, you're going to believe it. And it's true. I mean, that's pretty basic with that comment, but you know, if you're around people that are negative all day long, guess what? There's a good chance that it's going to absorb into you, just like if you're around someone that's positive, just like if you're around someone that's innovative, energized, whatever. I mean, it's true. The point is, media is terrible in general, whether it's online or news media. The reason I bring this up is that try to break away from that and do your own research. Meet with someone like us or someone else that's excited about getting you into a property or having you move up. Get some strategies in place, you know, to help your life in general when it comes to those type of investments.
No, I agree 100%. And again, we had $1 for every time we said it. Just do some due diligence.
Yeah.
Put a team together and run the numbers. And so many people are lazy to even run the numbers, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you, this is going to go into this psychological, philosophical Dr. Phil stuff, but if you are renting right now and you're surrounded by a lot of renters, or if you're surrounded by people that either are afraid or don't want to buy, and believe me, I could tell you hundreds of stories, even within my own family. I won't name names to keep the innocent, to keep them safe, but I've had nieces and nephews come to me, seriously, Mike, and say, Joe, you know, I want to talk to you about buying a home because my parents and a lot of my relatives say it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're right or wrong or I'm right. What I'm saying is what's sad is if that's your child or if you're influenced by someone and by automatically throwing a blanket and telling someone don't own your own home, I mean, the whole thing, you're going to have to buy your roof and you're going to, what if your plumbing goes bad? I mean, again, I'm not suggesting if you don't want to buy something's wrong or that's negative, right or wrong. What I am saying, it's amazing how people are influenced.
Yeah.
And if you, as you said, unless you step out of that box and do your own research or due diligence.
I would say it's probably wrong to have that mindset, but I'll go out there. I'll go out there and say it. You know?
Well, I think what you do with anything, it would be like someone coming to you. Seriously, this is an example. Someone coming to you as a young person or someone that says, hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business, and you go, oh, you're stupid. Yeah. You know, why would you leave the security of a job?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, there's no sense thing as security.
No, there is.
Right?
But it's like that one. Who is that one? Well, I don't know if we named the name, but remember that one guy that came out in some podcasts and said like owning a home is stupid.
He did it for shock value. It's Gary V. It's that guy that yells and screams and cusses at everybody. And, and I mean, actually, he's a very popular guy, and he does have a lot of good stuff to say. But he came out and said, you know, it's a bunch of bullshit. People are stupid, basically, for buying homes.
Yeah. And it's like, what?
So that statement alone, when you think about it, no offense, but I would debate that all day long. There's a reason. I mean, if you just look at the basics, throw everything else out, and just say, well, let's see, do we have to live? Where do we live? Where would we sleep? Where would we eat?
I mean, I think it's all circumstantial, obviously, right? Maybe if you're a drifter, if you're someone that moves every year, then it's probably not a good idea. Or maybe it is a good idea to buy a home in a central location and get rental income on it and travel around, whatever. But it all depends on the type of person you are and what you do for a living and all that stuff. But I think in general, getting back to the nieces and nephews conversation, I mean, I'm a firm believer in home ownership, so I think that it's the right answer all day. Yeah,
and as we close out the show, keep in mind, understand, we're not advocating every single person should buy a house. That not at all. What we're saying is, look at the opportunities out there, and I could tell you that 99.9% of the people, when you talk to them, and if they've purchased a home and they were responsible and they kept it for a long period of time or a period of time, 99% of the people are going to say it's one of the best decisions I ever made.
Yeah.
And certainly you're going to get a small percentage. All I'm saying is I'd love to see people in the Bay Area or wherever in the United States that are really struggling with that. I don't know if I can afford it, and I'm not sure, and people tell me this. That's what I'm talking about. Try to step away from that. If you're dead set against it, this is not for you. I'm saying for the young people or even people at any age that really want to experience home ownership.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And at least, look into it.
Look into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look into it. All right. Speaking of that, if you want to look into it, and if you're going to step over the fence and make that big move, reach out. Give Mike a call. Where's the best place to reach you? 408-630-0101 or MikeDsells.com. And if you need anything to know about rent control, call Mike. He's the expert.
Yeah, I'm the expert. Yeah, exactly. I know I'm going to hear someone coming out about, this was it, because the thing is, people are still figuring things out.
Right.
So in general, I was pretty accurate too.
It was pretty accurate. Yeah. All right. As always, if you need to reach me, 408-838-9060, or you can always email joe@reradiolive.com. Thank you again for all those that follow the show, download the podcast. Again, every once in a while, I'd just like to thank those that take the time to listen. I know you have a lot of choices, and we appreciate you truly listening to the show. Appreciate it very much. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.